Perfect, this looks live. All right, so let's get started. So, hi everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday talk session. And in this session, in this video, I would like to cover how do you basically go about choosing a domain, how do you pick up web hosting providers, and I'm also going to cover something that most people look for when you're looking at starting up your own site, which is the web design. So this particular video is going to include all of that. And one of the things, or one of the key things that I have learned over a period of about a decade, is that the domain name is the key when you're even trying to get followers organically. Okay, so let me give you a bit of background as to why I call domain name as the key. Now, I've been a person who's bought about at least over, I can say, 40 domains over the past 10 years, and a majority of the domains were bought in the early part of it. And that is also what I realized is I bought a lot of domains with aspiration to start off business, but I really did not go ahead with it. So it was more like, okay, I have an idea. So because I have an idea, I'm just going to buy a domain. Why? Because it's cheap, right? Its domain names are very cheap at times. So I thought, let me just get a domain name and then I'll see how things go about. But one of the things that I learned over a period of time is that no matter what the idea is, you need to have a backend, you need to have logistics, you need to have the idea to be brought to fruition, right? And that is basically the key. So some of the one of the domain names which I had initially thought of, and I actually executed it, and I still have it executed till this day. So some of the things that I have as part of my business are, one is obviously the Mindstorm.in, which is the agency website, which is a site that I built by myself. And then you have the other website, which is worldsbestcasestudies.com. Now, this was a site that I had planned off about in 2013, 2014 itself. I bought it during a similar time when I had set up Mindstorm.in. And during that time, my goal was to curate all the video case studies that are out there in the world, and kind of focus on highlighting the best. So that was basically the idea. And till today we have about roughly about 400 case studies on that. Initially I started off with complete enthusiasm, and then over a period of time that faded, but the traffic didn't. Now I'll give you a bit of background why the traffic didn't. Now, if you see the domain name, it's worldsbestcasestudies.com. I managed to get world's best case studies, and the first time I actually did that, I ended up searching for best case studies. So I ended up basically searching for best case studies, and I couldn't really find any. The next thing that hit my mind is, why don't I make it world's best case studies? It gives a good ring to it. Secondly, if any case study gets kind of featured on our site, it basically creates that kind of aura saying that it's one among the best in the world, right? So, and that's where I decided, let me pick this particular domain name, and that has basically driven all the organic traffic in the world until today from different countries. We've been World's Best Case Studies has been a site that's been tagged across countries. It's been listed across online resource sections. So we've got a lot of backlinks that we have achieved over a period of time just because of the kind of content. A majority of the businesses and universities tend to keep this under a lockdown or maybe like a paywall to it. We have kept everything for free until now. So I've not really looked at it from a paywall perspective, but basically World's Best Case Studies was formed in order to help me be able to structure everything I see, right? And it's 400 plus case studies out there. So everything that I have seen in the past, the kind of campaigns that I've seen in the past, and explored or visually had an impact on me, are there on that particular site. Worldsbestcasestudies.com is that particular site. Now I chose the domain name for that. Now the simple thing is, about choosing a domain name is the most difficult task. Similarly, choosing a hosting provider is also a difficult task. Let me give you a bit of background so you get an idea between choosing a domain name and a hosting provider. Now, when both of these are to be looked at, both of them are two different things. Domain name is like an address. like a name given to a place that you have given to yourself, right? But the hosting provider is the place, is the space itself. Think about it as the land or the piece of land, and let's say the name of your house becomes the domain name, right? So that's basically how it is. The domain name is cheap, but the land is expensive, and that's basically how it goes. There are two separate identities. So you can actually buy a domain name from someone else, and you can buy a hosting provider plan from somebody else altogether. And that is basically the difference between these two. You've got to understand, if I have to delve into a little more detailed, domain name is, there are a variety of domain names. There are extensions. There are, like, you have a country specific top level domain, and TLDs is what they call it. But nevertheless, you don't have to actually know too much in detail. But basically, to give you a rough overview, these two are two different things. A lot of people confuse it as, okay, if I basically assign a work to a website development company, then I will be able to get the domain name and the hosting provider as well, and everything is basically assigned to that particular development company. And the development company says that's not something that we can do, right? Because although it's a website project, the domain name is something that has to be renewed every year, just like a license. And the because it's a name that you basically keep only for the tenure. After that, you can basically buy and sell, so you can actually go in for trade when it comes to the domain name. Whereas the hosting provider is also getting into the same thing. So it's more about having a space of you on the internet. So you're actually hiring space from someone. That does not come from the website developer at all. The website developer's job is actually to develop the site. Now, whether it would be under content management framework, like whether it would be Magento, Shopify, or WordPress, or there are countless of them, right? So there are lots of them. Each one of them have their different features, their unique features, and a variety of them that are out there. So it's very different when you explore all of these three spaces. So let's do this. Let me just take you through some of these domain name and hosting providers, and some of the places where you can actually get an idea of how do you basically understand and how to go through picking up domain names. So I'm going to just open up three different sites. We're going to quickly look at those. So you can see the first one. You can obviously go to GoDaddy as well to actually look at domain names. So you can actually come here, hunt your domain name, pick your perfect domain name. But remember that when you pick up a domain, hosting does not necessarily is a part of it. Domain names are usually cheap, so they typically tell you saying get a .com for $4.99. That doesn't mean hosting provider. Hosting provider is very different from domain name. Okay, so when you look at a hosting provider, you also need to look at, yes, GoDaddy. For some of you might have questions saying GoDaddy provides both. Yes, a lot of people provide both. A lot of people provide hosting, but not necessarily a domain, right? And that is something that's been done by a lot of companies. So I usually prefer two brands, which is SiteGround. So one is SiteGround, and the other one is Hostinger. Hostinger has become popular of late. It's very popular of late, because of their speed of service, because of the style of service, because of the kind of neatness it has in their approach and their thought process. So Hostinger is really cool. You can try that. It's cheap as well. It's dirt cheap, right? So I'll just show you one of their packages. So they do offer cloud hosting plans and server plans and all of that. So they charge you like $59 a month. Now that's really really cheap. Okay, so that's where you are. You have the domain name. You can obviously buy the domain name here as well with Hostinger. You can also buy it from GoDaddy and then link it to Hostinger. So you got to basically do the backend linking with CNAME records and stuff like that. A little bit technical, but Hostinger has a tutorial, a quick tutorial for that. Now, the best part over here is that, or the most interesting part over here is what you actually put on the site, right? So for that, what you can do is you can head over to a site called themeforest.com. It's got one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite places where I go to kind of scout a lot of designs and web themes, and tons of them. So these are like ready-made website design layouts, where all you have to do is be able to install them on your WordPress host, and then just modify everything that's out there. Okay, So if you were to look at, let's say I'm picking up something like a blog. So let's say you want to do a blog, right? I would pick up something like these, right? So there are a lot of these which I can see over here, and you can actually pick them up as well. These are a lot of platforms over here, a lot of choices that you have. It charges somewhere around $35. So the range typically depends between a $35 to $79, $89. That's usually been the range for almost most of them, right? And that's I just clicked on it and it shows you the preview. Okay, so I'm not going to cover in detail in terms of how do you set it up and all of that, because those are comparatively much longer tutorials. I'll probably create a course along with it because I can. It's that detailed. But what you get to see over here is it's very easy to basically install any of these themes. So these are like variations of the same theme. They're slightly modified, these themes, so I can just click on one of them and you can see how you can actually see the kind of different layouts that exist as part of this particular theme. Now this is a WordPress design, so WordPress design comes along with its features. You have a full-fledged website built right away, and it's instant, so you can actually go here. So actually building the website is no longer a challenge. Actually developing or deploying the website is no longer a challenge. The challenge has now changed from developing to actually creating content and being able to put it up consistently, and that is basically where the challenge lies these days. So we've gone from a time of being able to find it difficult to actually upload new content, and you always needed a developer all the time. Now you don't need developers. It's instant, it's fast, and that's what I wanted to cover today. So that's basically it for today's session. When you basically look at getting a design, spend a lot of time. Make sure that your design doesn't need to change for at least about a 1 year, 2 years. So try to keep searching. Generally, up as a practice, what I do is I keep things in my mind when it comes to domain names. A hosting provider is easy. I either pick between Hostinger or SiteGround, one of the two, whichever is cheap at times. But the domain name and the website design, these are things that I keep an eye on. So if it's a domain name, I just write it down in my notes, just so that I can pick over a period of time whenever I browse. But when it comes to themes, I kind of at times subscribe to Theme Forest, or keep coming once in a while, or once in 2 days, or once in 3 days, and keep a constant touch with the design, with the kind of latest themes that are coming, so that I have this thing in my mind where if someone out there asks me for a good design for a travel sector, and I will immediately go to Theme Forest. I know exactly what it is called, and where the design standards have reached when it comes to building a site in the travel segment. So that's the beauty of it. It's about staying in touch with themes. You got to do that. So what happens is, when you're building a site from scratch, then you don't really need to struggle a lot. The other thing about keeping an eye on all of these designs is that you get to see the features that most of these websites use, or most of these themes use. And then let's say if you do not have that feature in your site, you will be able to kind of build it or create it, or get it loaded, or get a plugin for it. So plugins are like extensions for the theme. Like if you see a live chat, that's basically an extension for the theme. So that's basically what it is. All right. Sorry, I think I did not really switch earlier. So this is what it is. What I wanted to talk about. You can see over here that there is GoDaddy. You can see over here that there is obviously the Theme Forest account, which I have actually gone to, right? And then you have the theme altogether that you can actually search for. Okay, and then yes, you've got Hostinger, you've got the hosting platforms. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover today in the Tuesday Talk session, and I look forward to seeing you in the next Tuesday Talk.